we had our press conference here on Friday with Matt Rule, about 8 players, but we got a depth chart. And I think for a lot of people, it was just interesting to see because, is a real true view of what this roster is going to look like with Matt Rule. Let's first talk, Steve Sipple, on the offense.
Okay.
Some of the things that jumped out to you on this first depth chart we got from Matt Rule.
Well, the first thing is I think you got to point out the veteran nature of this team, because that was something of a theme today as Matt Rule addressed the media corps and several players. I mean, this is an offense, Sean, with 6 junior starters and 2 senior starters. Okay, that's 8 upperclassmen starters. It's not and these guys most of them are holdover players from the previous staff. So that jumped out at me. But the biggest pure personnel move that jumps out at me, I got to think you would agree with this, Sean, is the number 3 running back, Anthony Grant.
There's no oars on there.
No more.
I mean,
Anthony Grant is number 3.
They didn't even try to soft land that,
No.
And say Ramir Johnson or Anthony Grant. It was
Right.
He's the 3rd, and they were pretty liberal with the oars on there. I mean, Bonner and Liebenschreiber have an oar, Borkacher and Fedoni. And by the way, they're in alphabetical order. So
The oars, yes.
if you have an oar, they don't give somebody like the edge. It's just listed in alphabetical order, which
Right.
is probably the right way to do it.
I think in Ramir's case, Ramir Johnson at running back being the number 2 running back is probably a nod to his versatility. Probably, he's got better hands than the other 2 guys. He is the 3rd down back. He's a defined 3rd down back. It might be that. Now we know about Anthony's struggles this camp with fumbles. He got a little case of fumbleitis, and that knocked him down a peg. But I did not expect him to be number 3, Sean. I thought 2. This is your leading rusher from last year. He was the defined starter throughout last season, and here he is to start this season, number 3.
A lot of new faces on that offensive line showed up too. Sam Sledge is a number 2 left guard. Gunnar Gatula, a number 2 left tackle. Justin Evans Jenkins, who's never been on a depth chart, is now number 2 center. So that was positive. Then Tyler Knack, the transfer from Utah, number 2 right tackle. So 4 completely new faces showing up on that O-line.
Well,
I think Borkacher being a co-1 with Fedoni, I mean, that gets your attention, but I think it tells you what it tells me. They're going to play with a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, due respect, I expected Borkacher to be right there.
A co-1?
Yeah.
But that just tells you they're going to be a lot of 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends.
I think so. Going back to the offensive line, there's quite a distinction to be made. That first group of guys is a veteran unit, and then the second group of guys are young guys. I mean, almost all of them, except I'd still considered Henry Lutovsky a young guy, even though he's a sophomore with 2 starts under his belt. It's quite a distinction between that first group of O-linemen and the second group. That stood out in my mind. Those were the main things, Sean. And there's a fullback. And by the way, there's a fullback on the depth chart again.
And Alex Bullock,
Okay.
outright number 1 and getting a scholarship. So
yes, at wide receiver.
I thought one of the lines of the press conference, because both Bullock brothers got scholarships on this team this August, that I hope their parents went out and bought a car or something.
That's what Rule said. Yeah, or go on vacation. Yeah, Nebraska took some heat off that family.
Hopefully they're going out to Mahogany Prime in Omaha or somewhere and just getting a big steak to celebrate tonight.
That sounds good. Exactly right now. That sounds good. Those were the main things, Sean.
All right, defensive depth chart. We got to look at that as well. Let's start first with the freshman. Cam Lenhart comes on there as a co-1 with Blaze Gunnarsson, and Rule made the line at the press conference. He's a fake freshman, meaning that he does not look like a freshman.
Yeah, that was Reimer.
That was Reimer.
That was
a fake freshman.
That was Reimer that labeled him a fake freshman. And then there's some guys expanded on it, like Ty Robinson said, because he's advanced. He's so far advanced in his game. I don't know what they're going to do there. The question is, you're playing a Big Ten opponent, Sean. Are you putting him out there against a Big Ten opponent? Or are you going to go? Would it be safer to play Gunnarsson? A 4th-year sophomore.
Well, Gunnarsson's really never played like these kind of snaps, so either. He's been really limited over his career. I mean, battled some injuries.
That's true. But he's an older guy, 4th-year sophomore, 4th year in the program. But it sounds to me like Lenhart's got an edge. That's what it sounds like.
Well, and then, Nick Henrich wins a job outright. Coming off the knee injury that he did, it would have been real convenient to throw an oar with him, but he won that job. He's won the respect of the locker room. They're not going to do captain voting, but he was a captain. He's the only returning captain on this team from a year ago.
Yeah, Henrich playing with a bulky brace. He wasn't cleared to go full go until a couple 3 weeks before camp, I believe. And here he is on the one line. I don't know, Sean. I think about our conversations in the off season. I don't know that we would have necessarily guessed this, that he would be the defined number 1 at a linebacker spot. But there he is. And he's a dude. And I'll tell you what, he has grown into his body. You see Henrich out there at 6'3", 235. That's a good looking linebacker, Sean. And those top guys we expected, except Javin Wright. I didn't know if we'd see his name among those top 4, but there it is.
And then
what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Javin Wright, you just didn't hear his name much at all. And I think we all knew who the top three backers were on the inside, with Bullock being the third.
Right.
And it was kind of a mystery. Who was it going to be a Gaber or Randolph Kapai or Snodgrass?
Right.
No, it's Javin Wright. And both what Javin Wright and John Bullock have in common, they both played safety last year.
Yeah.
And now they're both linebackers.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there were guys in the media corps that were talking about Wright like he was still in the secondary. And we had to say, no, wait a second. No, he's a linebacker.
He's been listed as a linebacker on the depth chart. But again, I think this 3-3-5, it leads a lot of positional confusion. Yeah. Like MJ Sherman, Chief Borders, Jamari Butler, they're a jack linebacker, but they're kind of a defensive end. I mean, they're a money position.
That's a money position.
That's the position that will make money if you're good at it.
The jack position is where you better have dudes. Dudes that can fire off the edge, dudes who can come up and run support and help your defensive line when they have to. I don't know, Sean, I'm not Bill Parcells, but I imagine that there's some coverage responsibilities with those guys. So yeah,
pass rushing too, though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I said that right off the bat. They got to come off the edge. They got it. Those guys are going to be expected to get home. So yeah, big time athletes. Those three guys are big time athletes.
All right, one more thing I want to throw in here. Deshaun Singleton, the camp he's had, wins a job outright. Him and Omar Brown. I think a year ago at this time, we kind of thought both those guys would be a bigger factor. Neither ended up being much of a factor in 2022. Clear they will be a factor this year, as they weren't even on the field for very many key snaps. In fact, Deshaun Singleton, I think, played 67 defensive snaps a year ago.
6 games. He got in 6 games. I think he had 4 tackles, 5 tackles, not very many. Now, I will say this about Deshaun Singleton, 2 things. He's become kind of the talk of camp late. He's the star of the late stages of preseason camp, Deshaun Singleton. Now, if you think back to last summer, he was practicing with the first unit a lot last year, and then ultimately lost out to Marcus Buford, who's injured, and we may not see Marcus Buford this season.
He could play up to 4 games in redshirt, so that could be a path for him.
That could be a path. But Rule said today, you might see him in game 5 or game 6. You might not see him at all. Okay, and then Miles Farmer's gone. So here's Deshaun Singleton's big chance, and he has seized it. You heard, for instance, the running back Gabe Irvin say that when he runs into Singleton, what Irvin say, Sean? He said it's like running into a linebacker.
He's a big guy.
He's a big dude.